Centerpiece, the show dedicated to fighting on the front lines of political hypocrisy, exposing the lies and false promises of our leadership. And now your host, the voice of reason, Nick Messer.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Centerpiece. I am Nick Messer, the voice of reason. I am joined in the studio this evening with Mina May. We had a major update on our studio equipment, so you should notice that on this show and going forward that we're going to have a much, much higher quality of sound.
Yep. Hopefully.
Yeah.
So far it's sounded pretty good, so I'm liking it. The setup is a lot better too, so.
Yeah. I'm quite excited to.
I'm not like right up next to you having to share one mic.
Right, exactly. And for those of you that listen to this show and also follow the show Current Pulse, that Mina May and myself co-host, this same studio setup will be used for that show. So you should see here in a couple of episodes the massive increase in audio quality coming out in that show. So comments that I make won't quite sound as much as though I'm just kind of screaming in the background.
Yeah.
So that's kind of exciting. One of the things I did actually want to bring up at the beginning of the show, so a lot of what I've done as far as listening to the intro music for the show has been just listening to it through the speakers that are included in my laptop that I broadcast the show with. And anyone who has a laptop knows that if you don't spend, several hundreds, close to $1,000 on a laptop, they don't come with very good speakers. So with the new studio setup, we are now listening to everything through high quality studio headphones. And I want to give a huge shout out to a good friend of mine, Mark Givens, who is a fantastic musician. I have a new love for Centerpiece's intro music. That's a original piece of music that Mark wrote specifically for the show here. You can't find that anywhere at all. He does have a SoundCloud that has original music on it. So get in touch with me via Facebook or email, and I can get you the information to his SoundCloud if you'd like to listen to some more of his work. So I wanted to give him a huge shout out this time because he worked quite hard on that piece, and now that I've heard it in its fullest capacity, it sounds pretty awesome. So now we're going to go ahead and get right into it. Want to talk about HR 1. And Mina has seen some stuff about this. She's read some stuff about this. I want to tell you right now, I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. I don't care if you're left-wing, right-wing, alt-right, far-left. You need to oppose this 100% because this is bad. This is real bad. Like, this is literally the stuff that we've been trying to warn you about for the better part of a year now. So one of the biggest things that's a big problem that I want to stress this right here. HR 1 allows for a 6-to-1 match for campaign contributions less than $200. And that comes that money, that match money that they're going to throw in on top of that $200 that somebody contributes to a campaign fund, comes directly out of the taxpayer's pocket. That's going to have to be part of the federal budget each year when we have an election. And just to put this into perspective, in the 2020 election, that would have provided, and I did the math on this, that would have provided Joe Biden with an extra $2,439,374,448 in campaign contributions.
And I mean, when you say that, when you talk about that, you need to make it understood that when it comes to the contributions, if I were to contribute to, let's say, the Trump campaign, taxpayer dollars goes to the Trump campaign.
Right. And that's why I say, regardless of what side of the aisle that you need to that you're on, you need to oppose this 100%, because if you follow the Democrat Party and your beliefs align with the Democrat Party, then your tax dollars are going to go into campaign funds for the Republican nominees. And vice versa. If you're a Republican, your tax dollars are going to go into the campaign coffers for Democrats.
Right.
You know, and you have no, they're going to tax you, take your money, and give it to people who aren't even representing you yet.
I don't think that. I don't think that it's even right in the first place that taxpayer dollars should be going to support campaigns anyways.
Right. Absolutely. I don't believe that taxpayer, I mean, that's not a governmental expense. That's not something the government should be spending money on.
That if you want, that is your choice. That is a choice you should be able to make. That is not something that should be required of you as a taxpayer to have to see your tax dollars go towards paying for a campaign.
Right. Well, and I mean, the tax dollars are supposed to be for infrastructure, you know, so we can magically generate $2.5 billion for we have to take into consideration too, this isn't just for presidential elections. This is for all elections.
Right.
Okay. So where are we going to get the budget money to fill these campaign coffers?
Right.
With these matched amounts?
And I mean, you're at this point, how much more can you tax? I mean, you're already taxing hardworking Americans to the breaking point at this, already.
Oh, yeah. Especially with the pandemic going on, and you're making them all stay home, and they're not allowed to work, and they're not allowed to go anywhere. And
right.
So not only are you taking money from them, but they can't make any more either.
Right. So, I mean, how much more are you planning on taxing them? This, honestly, right here is enough to just say no. I don't support this bill. Yeah,
I mean, seriously, we need to wake up on this, because I mean that's the biggest most number one thing that we need to. I
mean, this isn't at all the most dangerous part of the bill, but this is definitely the part of the bill that goes, it's just not fair to the American people.
This is the part that is 100%. This is the unifying part. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is the part that I think everybody can get behind. Some of the other stuff that's going on within the bill is can be argued one way or the other, so, and not everybody would agree, but we should all be in agreement that the federal government should not be using taxpayer dollars, that we work very, very hard to earn our money, that you tax the absolute snot out of.
To fund their campaigns,
to fund their campaigns.
Exactly. It's
Jason, this is H.R. 1.
Yeah.
This is the H.R. 1 bill. It's supposed to be. It's otherwise known as.
It's in the Senate right now.
Yeah, it's in the Senate.
A lot of people are saying it's DOA, so I don't know, but
yeah, I'm hoping it is DOA. Here's a little bit more about it. It forces the states to develop an AVR program. AVR stands for Automatic Voter Registration, which means if you go to the BMV or anything like that, then you must opt out of registering to vote versus opting in. So you don't have a choice. You're registered to vote, and then thus can be selected for jury duty and all of the other things that come along with voter registration. Here's another big one. They are trying to circumvent the Constitution and create D.C. as the 51st state. That's included in the bill.
And that doesn't make any sense. That I don't believe that should happen either.
I don't believe that it should happen, but I think we disagree on the reason why. As far as the people who live in D.C., there's 700,000 people, 760,000 people who live in Washington, D.C., who have no congressional representation, which is literally taxation without representation, which is part of the reason why we shot the British in 1776. Okay, that's why we threw a bunch of tea into the Boston Harbor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that was part of it, a big part of it. So I can understand the sentiments behind it, and they still pay federal taxes. And the only representation they have is they do have 3 electoral votes for the presidential and vice presidential election. So they do have representation there. They just don't have any representation in Congress. Now, I believe that we should keep our seat of government for the entire country in a neutral territory, which is fine. And what they're basically wanting to do is they want to shrink the District of Columbia, the actual capital, to the small area, basically just encompassing the National Mall and the White House. That very, very, very small area. Because the Constitution does state that the capital area, the district that makes up the federal government capital, must be less than 10 miles square. So it would be very, very small. And then they want to take the area outside of that and make it its own state. And the problem that I have with that is actually that land belonged to Maryland. That was part of the state of Maryland before they agreed to give it up for the District of Columbia to make the national capital. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if we are going to shrink the overall district for the national capital, then Maryland should get their land back. Mm-hmm. They don't get to make another state. Congress doesn't have the authority to do so anyway. So, if these people want to be represented in Congress and they want to do it this way, then you shrink the district to just the National Mall and the White House, and Maryland gets their land back.
Well, I'm just at the point where if this doesn't pass Senate, which, like I said, there's been a lot of talk of this already being DOA. I mean, is it going to be one of those, oh, well, we're just going to sign an executive order?
Biden already did. Today is the anniversary of the Bloody Sunday from back in the 60s with the Voter Rights March and so on and so forth. I didn't make notes on it, but he signed a bill for that. H.R. 1 forces colleges to act as voter registration facilities and must participate in the automatic voter registration programs. Yeah.
I'll tell you.
And part of the automatic voter registration program, it allows the states to start registering voters at the age of 16. So they go get their driver's license and they get registered to vote at the age of 16. But there are no provisions within the bill in order to separate those voters from the eligible voters. So 16-year-olds can go start voting.
16-year-olds aren't even... 16-year-olds, most 16-year-olds, almost all 16-year-olds, aren't even enthralled with the idea of having to vote at 16. I mean, they're not even worried about that right now.
It's one of the farthest things from their mind.
Right. 16-year-olds are worried about homework and tests and iStep and everything else that's going on in their personal lives. So, I mean, 16-year-olds are not politically, like most 16-year-olds are not at all politically involved politically at all with anything going on with the government or who they choose as their president or their governor or anything like that.
Right. But the fact of the matter is that they could.
I know. I mean, but, I talk to my children about I talk to my children on a regular basis, including my 16-year-old, about politics and what's going on, and keep my children involved so they know what is going on, so that when they hit that age of when they're able to start voting, which I believe, again, I'm going to reiterate this, 16 is too young to be voting.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and you have to take into consideration our 16-year-old daughter is the exception, not the rule.
I'm sorry, but if you were to ask me at what age do I believe people should be able to vote, I would honestly probably tell you 21, because most people don't even have their lives together even at 21. So how are they even able to vote?
You're absolutely right. Jason posted a comment and said, but you get to people like David Hogg pushing kids to vote. And that's exactly what it's going to be. But they're not currently eligible to vote.
Right.
They're registered to vote, but their vote is considered ineligible.
Yeah.
But there are no provisions in order to be able to separate those votes from the eligible ones.
I think if we are going... Here's the thing.
I mean...
In our Constitution and in just about everything that we have as far as rights, you are not you are not allowed. I guess I can't say as far as rights, but it's rights and privileges at the same time. You are not allowed. You are not able to drink until you are 21.
Right.
There's many things that you're not allowed to do until you are 21.
Yeah, you can't smoke a cigarette and you can't drink a beer, but
you can't own a gun until you're 21. I think if
you can own one, you can own one. You just can't go out and purchase a handgun for yourself.
Yes.
Somebody has to buy it for you.
There we go.
Essentially, gift it to you.
Okay. Well, then we'll go with that. You cannot purchase a gun until you're 21.
Right.
If we're going to make all these laws, 21 to drink, 21 to smoke, 21 to purchase a gun, then it should be 21 across the board.
Right. Absolutely. I've had this talk a couple of times with Jason off the air, and I brought up the fact that I think that, the age limit for people enlisting into the military or even into law enforcement should be 21. I mean, realistically speaking, I believe it should be 21 because you have a lot of they're not ready. No. They're not ready for that yet.
No, they do it thinking that it is a good idea. They get convinced that it is a good idea.
I will be 100% honest with you. I am proud of my military background. I'm proud of being a veteran and everything. Was I ready to join the military right out of high school? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Was I influenced to think that it was going to be some sort of like fancy, great idea to do so? Yes, 100%.
I think most young kids are.
Yeah.
They think that, this is going to be great and this is going to pay for everything. And they don't realize that it doesn't.
I mean, they don't come right out and tell you these things, but they do a lot like the recruiters for the military. They do a lot like mainstream media does. They use verbiage that causes you to generate an assumption, and they don't tell you that you're wrong.
Yeah. You
know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They don't come right out and say it, but they lead you to an assumption, and then they don't tell you that you're wrong.
Yeah.
It allows, here's another one. It allows students to vote in the jurisdiction where they attend school and not where their home is.
I gotta say, I don't agree with that either. I think, if you're attending college in, let's say you live in Indiana and you're attending college in Ohio, your address is Indiana.
Right.
So you need to be voting within Indiana.
Right, exactly. Now, one of the things that the bill actually does do that I do like, it changes the way the census counts people. Currently, the census counts incarcerated persons in the area that they are incarcerated in, whereas the census would be required to change and count those people in the area where they're from.
Okay.
Now, I do like that idea because incarcerated people have no impact on the community in which they are incarcerated in. And when they are released, they go back home.
Right.
So they should be counted as part of that area when the time comes for the census. So, I mean, there are a few small things in H.R. 1, very, very small things that aren't really that bad. Another one forces states to allow SDR for federal elections, which is same-day registration, which means you can walk up to the polls and register to vote and then vote. And poll workers have no chance at all whatsoever to validate your eligibility to vote.
I do not agree with that whatsoever.
I don't either.
I don't agree with the biggest majority of this bill. I think maybe there's one or two things that maybe I agree with, but
if they took some of these things and sent them through Congress as a standalone, like changing the way the census,
they're not going to do that though.
Well, no, they're not going to do that. They're going to attach something to it that people don't like. But I mean, I'm just saying, hypothetically speaking, if they were to send, like, changing the census so that incarcerated persons are counted in the area they're from, where they live, versus where they're incarcerated, like, if they sent that through as a standalone bill, I would say we need to pass this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's going to give an more accurate representation of the population demands on a particular area. But, I mean, it's nuts. This bill is just 100% insane. Give me just a second here. I'm going to pull up a website it's from rollcall.com. They had a real quick kind of breakdown of like 10 things you may not know about HR 1. We already covered the DC statehood. Another thing it does is allows campaign funds for certain personal expenses. So not only are they going to increase the amount of money that the campaigns can get, you know, they are going to open it up so that they can spend that money on more things like health insurance, care of their children or other dependents, and expenses required to maintain a professional license or certification.
Good heavens.
Yeah. The ideal of it is it's designed to make running for office more accessible to people who are low-income individuals. So you essentially basically don't have to be a billionaire to run for office.
Well, I mean, in certain aspects, that's great, but at the same time, most of the people that are running for office, that's who they are. You know, they're not you very rarely get the homegrown low income.
Right. Like myself, I'm not really financially in a position that I'm just going to jump and run for president. You know what I mean? But I mean, if you want to make it so that lower income people can run for the president, then instead of giving campaigns more money, tighten the restrictions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like clamp down on it. Set a cap, you know, on your campaign. Like any given campaign cannot have more than $50 million. That's what you get. That's what you get to run on.
I don't know.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
It could be a possible. It could be workable. It could be, but at the same time, I see it being. It's one of those things. Like what we were talking about last night. Some things that the Democrats come up with, they're great on paper. But then when they get their hands on it and they start messing with it,
it becomes this discombobulated mess.
It does. It gets completely screwed up.
Yep.
And then they
yeah.
Yeah,
you lost the word?
I did. I've lost the word. They exploit it.
Yeah, they do 100%.
It's not.
They get their grubby little hands on it, and if it has money in it in any way, shape, or form,
Right.
they treat it like their private little piggy bank.
So, like, how you were talking about it, like, what you were talking about was, it helps for those who want to run, who are low income, who can't afford to run, who need the help for their children, families, and whatnot. That sounds amazing, doesn't it?
I mean, it does sound pretty amazing, but if you tie it into the fact that they're doing a 6-to-1 governmental match on every campaign contribution under $200, that means in 2024, if this passes in 2024, Joe Biden got just over $400 million in campaign contributions under $200 at a time, giving him roughly almost $2.5 billion is what this bill would give him. $2.5 billion added to his campaign. All right.
And you know that.
So what's going to stop Joe Biden from deciding that he's going to hire Jill Biden as a consultant and pay her $500 million for doing so?
There you go.
So they literally opened the door. And this is one of the things that I want people to understand. If I can think of it, they have thought of it.
Right. They have literally opened the door for this to be exploited in every way possible.
Yes. But essentially, this is a two-step process to essentially stick federal taxpayer money in their pocket.
Yes.
In their friends' pockets.
Yes.
And their family members' pockets. It's literally that simple. And if I could think of it, you better believe they thought of it.
Right.
It's probably the exact reason why it's even in there.
Mm-hmm.
They are going to, this bill also makes it a crime to mislead voters. And let me tell you this right now. If you go in and read the actual bill, all right, the verbiage in the bill is absolutely so vague. Absolutely 100% so vague, it's anything. You say anything they don't like, and it's a crime. 5 years in prison and a $100,000 fine. Yeah.
You can't talk about voter fraud. You can't talk about anything.
No, because that's misleading.
So not only are they overtaxing people, not only are they coming up ways to exploit taxpayer dollars, now they are also attacking freedom of speech.
Right. If you speak out about it, then it's a crime, and you go to prison for 5 years, and you have to pay back $100,000 fine.
That's no.
Yeah. That's absolutely insane.
That is completely and 100% against the Constitution.
I would agree. Well, folks, we're going to take a short time out. We're going to do our obligatory commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Are you a constitutionalist and fan of the Second Amendment? Then you need to listen to the American Gun Show, hosted by me, Jason Reeve, the voice of freedom. We talk about laws, training, and everything in between. Find us on the Firearms Radio Network, iHeartRadio, and every podcast platform. The American Gun Show. Our rights, our fight. Jason Reeve, the host of the American Gun Show here, inviting you to listen to our new show, Current Pulse. Join myself, Mina May, Nick Messer, and Samantha Reeve as we discuss top stories, political hypocrisy, and even stories you might not have even heard about. It's an open discussion of facts, not fake news like CNN and MSNBC. Join us on the weekly podcast, Current Pulse, right here on Spreaker.com or your favorite podcast provider.
All right, folks. Thanks for bearing with us in that little timeout. We are back. Once again, I am Nick Messer, the voice of freedom, joined with Mina May here in the studio. Mina's got a couple of things that she wants to talk about, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to her and let her get you an education.
Education.
Yeah.
So Joe Biden referred to Texas's decision of removing the mask mandate as a Neanderthal form of thinking.
Oh, really? So,
Yeah.
so Texas decided to go ahead and come up with their own idea and their own plan because they're getting absolutely no information from the federal government.
Yeah, that was on Thursday, and he was like, that's Neanderthal thinking.
Right. Because Joe Biden had a plan. Donald Trump didn't have a plan, but Joe Biden has a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've yet to see the plan or have him talk about the plan. But there's a plan.
But, yeah, Texas Governor Greg Abbott responded saying that the Biden administration was releasing illegal immigrants into Texas communities who had COVID. The Biden administration was spreading COVID in South Texas because the lack of constraint of testing and of quarantining of people who had come across the border illegally. The Biden administration was exposing Texans to COVID that in and of itself was a Neanderthal type of approach to dealing with the COVID situation.
Yeah. I mean, if you are an American citizen and you have traveled abroad, you must show proof of a negative COVID test or that you have had contracted COVID and have since recovered before you can re-enter the country of which you are a citizen of.
Yeah.
But you can come here illegally and don't need to be tested.
And it doesn't matter whether you're coming in via plane or coming in across the border in a vehicle, in a car.
Right.
Somebody was like, it doesn't. Somebody had said something on Facebook. Was it Facebook or Twitter? I think it was Twitter.
It was probably some leftist on Twitter.
Probably that. The whole you have to show proof to be able to board a plane. You had to show proof of being COVID negative.
Yeah, you do have to show proof of being COVID negative in order to board a plane to go anywhere in the United States, period.
Well, to come into the United States.
Yeah, but I'm saying you have to have a negative test.
Yes, that
to
yes.
get on a plane, period.
Yes.
But you also need it to get back into the country.
Yes.
You need it to drive back into the country.
Somebody had said, well, you don't that doesn't mean, or that doesn't I can't remember how they said it, but it was
they were basically trying to say that it didn't apply to people who were driving.
It didn't apply
and
to...
it was only airlines.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. It doesn't matter whether you can go to Mexico and get smashed off a tequila and try to crawl your way back into the United States because you are so hammered, and you must show a negative COVID test as an American citizen to get back into the United States.
Yeah. I mean, I find it interesting that the federal government created this whole mess with their executive owner. I mean, this is their own executive order that created this mess.
Yeah.
And now you have Jen Psaki. I'm just saying.
I think
Psaki.
it's Psaki. I think it's actually pronounced Psaki.
Yeah.
Like the rice wine, Psaki.
You have Circleback Jen saying it is the responsibility of non-government organizations, volunteer organizations, city officials to provide tests and to administer tests, that the federal government is not going to do anything to alleviate or this problem or the overflow at all whatsoever. And it's an overwhelming situation. Like, it is a severely overwhelming situation.
Yeah, we're going to, I mean, I'm not surprised. That's what the federal government does. Here, we're going to make it worse, and now you can deal with it.
Right. According to documents that have been released, and Axios actually reported this.
They're actually going to do some journalism for once?
Yeah, they actually reported this. So, internal documents from Health and Human Services have shown that the number of children coming across the border is overwhelming the administration's resources. The cages are at 94% occupancy. Now I know I said cages, but guess what? Dem's the rules, okay? Right?
If they were kids in cages, a year ago, they're kids in cages now.
Liberals called these facilities kids in cages during the Trump administration, so I'm only being fair and offering the same amount of respect to the Biden administration, and that was offered to the Trump administration. So the cages are at 94% occupancy and are expected to reach its maximum this month. Border Patrol referred to HHS about 321 children per day, according to internal government documents. Reports say that some from the Biden administration will actually be going to the U.S.-Mexico border to look at how these children coming across the border is troublesome. Apparently, Biden's administration can't read or understand. They can't listen to the issues the executive order has caused. They have to see it for themselves,
So
visually, to fully understand, because they couldn't possibly take the words of Border Patrol and HHS.
Yeah, they're going to go down there so that they can show everybody who's down there that they're ignoring it in person.
Yep,
essentially.
Practically.
Because they're still not going to do anything about it.
Yeah, no, they probably won't. Spokespeople for HHS haven't said anything yet about the documents coming out, but they have been moving towards opening overflow shelters, aka more cages. Right? Yeah.
Oh wait! I thought they were called reception centers.
Well, yeah.
I thought that's what we were supposed to call them now. We're supposed to call them reception centers, not.
Yeah, I'm getting to that.
Not detention facilities.
Of course, now the Biden administration, and this comes from, as far as I can see, the Washington Examiner. They're weighing a new name for all the facilities. It is setting up for the families at the southern border, calling them reception centers. Yeah.
Right. Like a welcome center when you first drive into a state.
Well, this is according to like 3 people who were apparently familiar with the discussions. The name is supposed to sound less harsh.
Okay, so
and this includes
that's fine. That's because they're trying to distance themselves from the fact that they called them kids in cages a year ago.
This includes one of the facilities we had talked about on Current Pulse in Carrizo Springs. The same facility that had been open under Trump for a month.
The same facility that's housing children that have been basically kidnapped and brought to the border for adults to be able to get in here faster.
Right. The exact same facility that you saw AOC standing at, crying or pretending to cry, calling them kids in cages.
Right.
And that's the same facility that the Biden administration is now using. That is at 94% capacity.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because with the executive order that's been signed, they're flocking. Like, can we take a moment and talk about the fact that there's literally a economy, there's literally a market in which Latin American parents are renting their children to complete strangers so that they can try to come to the border. Like,
and then we did this story on Current Pulse.
Because, I mean, I know we've talked about on several occasions, we brought up the fact that if a family seeking to immigrate to the United States shows up at the border with the proper documentation to display that the children that are with them are their actual children,
right?
They don't get separated.
Well, it's due to the Flores Amendment. If you have adults coming over with minors, those individuals get basically it's a fast pass through processing, and they get released from detainment quicker. So
because they've got kids and
right. But some of these people are coming over with kids that aren't their own. So this is what they call, or this is what they were referring to as a rent-a-kid. It's another form of human trafficking. The whole rent-a-kid situation is another form of human trafficking.
Right.
So families. Basically, families who need money, or that's basically what it usually is. As families who are needing money will essentially allow their kids to be used to get adults across the border. And then, of course, the consequence of that was to reopen these facilities that were open originally under Trump for that 1 month before the end of his...
Right, because once they get into the United States, they have no more need for the child, and what do you think they do with them? They ditch them.
Yeah.
So now you have you have hundreds of kids at the border with no adult supervision at all whatsoever because their parents rented them out to some complete and total stranger. The stranger got their acceptance into the United States and ditched the kid.
Right.
They don't take them back home.
But see, the difference is...
So, like, what are we supposed to do?
Right. And the facilities that are taking... The kids are being... Now, it's a frustrating situation because the children are being put in these facilities because they are considered unaccompanied minors, because they have to... It has to be proven that these children are actually the children of the adults coming over.
Right. And I don't even like the idea of calling them unaccompanied minors because, to me personally, they're abandoned children.
Well, not all of them.
But I mean,
some of them are actually the children of the people coming over, but they have to have, like, the documentation.
Right. And some of the time of the processing also isn't that where the Border Patrol, the ICE, the Immigrations and Customs is basically trying to get in contact with their home country to try to obtain said documentation to prove, that the kid.
However they do that,
I'm guessing that's part of what kind of drags out the processing there because they have to apply for that document.
Right, but the facilities that are housing the children are run by a completely different organization than ICE. So they're run by BCFS, and they also are connected with Health and Human Services, which is, but a contractor with HHS. Okay. And a contractor with the Office of Refugee Resettlement. So, I mean, they focus specifically on the kids.
Right.
Okay. But, no, back to what I was saying. Apparently, this new name is to distinguish the reception centers. They're calling them reception centers now.
Right.
This new name is to distinguish them from the facilities that ICE has, the detention centers and the holding facilities. Like, oh yeah, I mean, like ICE has detention centers and we have reception centers. Who doesn't want to go to a reception center? It sounds like.
Yeah, but we couldn't afford Donald Trump that same kind of like logic at all whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean,
They were kids in cages under Donald Trump.
It's like you're showing up to your hotel for a vacation.
Right.
Like, come on.
Hotel USA.
Come on in. Wait your turn. We've got social distancing, double masking, WAP, and Looney Tunes running the government. It's sure to be a hell of a time.
That's all, folks. Yeah. It's...
But get that. But no, so they say they are using the reception centers for not for holding people in custody, but get this. Okay, but for serving as a send-off point to release these people into the United States.
I mean, okay, so we've only got like 13 and a half minutes left of the show, and I will tell you right now, I could go for another hour on that, on why this is a bad idea.
I mean, that's all.
Like, do not get me wrong. I am all for the idea.
My thing is like, what's the difference? I mean, the detention centers, ICE detention centers, basically are the same thing. They're holding them there until they can release them.
Right.
But we have to give them a new name so it sounds less hard. I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm affording the Biden administration the same respect that the Trump administration was given when these facilities were open under the Trump administration.
You know
Kids
what?
in cages.
That's their logic. They can have it back.
Yes.
How does it feel? All right.
Oh,
We're doing
man.
to you what you did to us for the past 4 years. How do you like them apples?
Yeah. So I got a couple of fun ones for you here.
Okay.
So did you hear that Michael Brown's father and other Ferguson activists are demanding $20 million from Black Lives Matter, and they say that the financial organization raised $90 million, and they want $20 million for making their movement happen and want to know where the money is going. So yeah, Ferguson activists and Michael Brown's father demanding $20 million from BLM.
I'm going to say this right here, right now. Good on them, because they took Michael Brown and made him their poster child and perpetuated their entire movement based on a lie, and then made a ton of money off of it.
And then
So, I mean, I don't see why they shouldn't get a cut. You know what, Mr. Brown? Go after him for everything you can get.
And then we've got Mr. Gavin Newsom.
Oh, here we go. Did he go out to French Laundry again?
He apparently he must be like, I don't know. You've got to be like special money or old money or something like that to be able to go. I don't know.
Let me guess. He finally passed an order, and they have to wear 6 feet of masks on their face.
Gavin Newsom recommends that all Californians wear not 1, but 2 cloth masks or 1 filtered masks when in public.
Like I said, let's just wear 6 feet of masks. Then we guarantee our social distancing.
Newsom says they do not want to walk down the path of bad information coming from at least 4 other states that have
bad information.
4 other states, and that they are mindful of the public's health. Yeah, the other states that have handled the COVID situation better than California and New York put together.
Right. Because it's bad information. I mean, has this guy ever read a middle school science book at all, ever?
Newsom doesn't want to walk down the path of success, like, I don't know, like Florida, South Dakota, Texas, etc. You know, they just want to continue being crappy.
Let's be 100% honest. You can say shitty on my program.
I know.
Okay. We are not FCC regulated on this program, so I mean, and until we become so, we can say that stuff.
I thought Newsom was like.
I'm just going to say that's what you get for thinking.
I thought they had enough signatures to get him out. Like, what's going on with that?
I haven't seen anything more about that at all whatsoever. Because about the time they hit enough signatures to force a recall vote on Gavin Newsom, all of a sudden the actual real numbers about Andrew Cuomo came out, and that Newsom thing just got buried.
I think it's funny because when they were talking about trying to get him out, they were like, oh, well, we have to have like, oh, what was it? The story that I read that they have to have signature verification.
Oh, we don't need signature verification to vote, but we need signature verification to unelect someone.
Yeah.
Don't need it to elect them in the first place, but we needed to get rid of. I mean, that does not surprise me.
They had reached their 1.5 million signature goal, and that's when they said that they needed
to go back through.
Yeah, and they needed signature verification. So at that point, they needed to reach 1.9 million.
Oh, typical.
So
just move the goalposts.
Yeah.
When you attain, when the opposition actually attains something, you just move the goalpost.
Yeah, I think
until it fits.
That's basically just a typical Democrat thing. It's
yeah.
just, oh wait, we'll just.
No, you didn't score a touchdown because the goal line's down there now.
That's kind of a Dr. Fauci thing.
Now I know why they're called the New England Patriots.
Oh my goodness!
It answers a lot of questions.
I don't
really
know. Does. I tell you, but between this bill and the absolute chaotic mess they are creating at the border, I don't know what else.
I think it needs to be said. I haven't said it yet on. I've said it personally to a few people, but I haven't said it on the air yet. But it's a power grab. I mean, if you legitimately just stop, take a deep breath, okay, and calm down for a second. Put your emotional response in check that's been fed for the better part of half a decade from mainstream media. Put that in check and just step back and just look at the large picture of it. The Democrat Party in the United States government right now is on a massive power grab, and they told us back in the time of the Civil War the South would rise again.
Right, but I don't think certain people can do that. I mean, look at what we're dealing with right now. We've got.
Well, they better figure it out because they're going to get loaded into a boxcar here real soon.
We've got. People are trying to get rid of Dr. Seuss books because they're considered inappropriate content, but yet this female rapper,
Cardi B, wet ass pussy, WAP,
whatever her name, is Song of the Year,
right?
And
absolutely,
from what I heard, and from what I've read, they have made a Kids Bop version of her song.
So kids sat down and sang a song that obviously it was edited, but they still had kids sing the song essentially.
But Dr. Seuss is inappropriate content. Right. Why would you make music
because there's a picture of somebody in there with blackface? Yeah.
Why would you make music that Kids Bop sings? Like that's the most and last night we were subject to having to listen to this music 4 times in a row, not 4 times in a row, but 4 different times because we decided to go have drinks with friends, and we were subject to listening to this terrible song. It was the worst song. I had never heard it until last night.
I'm not impressed at all whatsoever with the new age rappers.
I am not either.
Since Eminem, there really hasn't been anybody good. But I was raised on Tupac and Biggie, so it's kind of hard to like what they've got today when you were raised on such greatness. Tupac was not a rapper; he was a poet.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah, it's
it was like torture having to listen to that 4 different times. Oh.
Yeah, that's that mumble rap, that triplet, pause.
Yeah, I couldn't even understand.
Pause.
I don't know.
Not a fan.
No,
I am not a fan. Like I said, The Democrats are on a power grab. And you better wake up and you better pay attention because, it doesn't end well for anybody. It doesn't even matter if you agree with them or not. It still doesn't end well. But
I every time I think about the Dr. Seuss and all this stuff going on, I wish I could remember his name. He's an actor. I always picture him yelling at somebody, "Quit being so."
I mean, I could see Lewis Black doing that. I mean,
yeah, pretty much that face and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, stop being so offended by everything. Like, what did Dr. Seuss ever do to you?
Well, I mean, I'm just curious as to how the people who were raised on South Park and Family Guy got so offended, became so offended by absolutely everything.
I know, and I grew up not being even able to watch. I grew up not being allowed to watch The Simpsons.
Right. Because Bart Simpson was inappropriate.
Yeah.
No.
Everything about The Simpsons, my parents deemed as inappropriate.
Right.
And then I was able to get out of my own and watched it and was like,
this really isn't that bad.
It's not bad, but it was stupid.
Yeah.
I didn't care for it.
Yeah.
I think most of those shows to me are just kind of stupid.
I mean, our culture, I mean, when we were kids, we grew up with sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
I still to this day don't care.
Yeah. But I mean, that's what 20 years ago, that's the way it was. And in 20 years, we went from sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me to words are actual violence.
Yeah, no. I don't
like,
know.
I promise you
I think
that if I showed you what actual violence was, it would physically hurt you a whole lot more than my words.
I think parents have weakened their children to a point where it's just...
We've coddled them into insanity.
Oh, I wouldn't say we.
We as a society and as a whole. Not we as in you and I.
No.
Try to remember, our children are the exception, not the rule.
Yeah, because I've literally told my kids bullying is kind of... You've got to deal with some form of bullying in your life.
We have to come to...
Not everyone gets to like you. Not everyone has to like you, and you don't have to like everyone.
I mean, we really have to, in our society, we really have to get to the point where we come to terms with the idea that, we're not going to ever get rid of all the bad stuff out there.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not going to happen. It's not possible. You're not going to, as much as we would all love to do so, you're not going to completely eliminate bullying at all.
Yeah.
Like you can reduce it, but you're never going to eliminate it. You're not ever going to eliminate racism. You're not going to completely eliminate transphobia. These things, you're because you can't dictate and legislate the way people think, because that's called tyranny.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know. It's just
and we shot people in this country for that. So, but all right,
you've got to
folks.
raise your kids with a backbone. That's all you've got to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Centerpiece. We do thank you for listening. Have a good evening. Thanks for listening tonight. And remember, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Benjamin Franklin. You can reach me at www.facebook.com/centerpiece. You can also email me at centerpieceshow@gmail.com, or you can shoot me a tweet at centerpieceshow on Twitter. Thanks again for listening.